Today, I want to talk to you about what the heck to do when you have an urge that just doesn't seem to want to go away. So let's say you've thrown everything you think you can throw at it, right? Like maybe you've gone for a walk, maybe you've tried to exercise, maybe you've gotten yourself some healthy food and are attempting to nourish your body. Maybe you've slowed down, maybe you've journaled, maybe you've called a friend, maybe you've texted somebody, support network or the brotherhood or what have you, right? Maybe you've done a whole laundry list of things, yet this urge doesn't seem to want to go away. Well, I'm going to talk about a couple things. First off, if you do not yet have the skills to process urges, meaning instead of resisting them and fighting against them and making them bigger, or instead of just, acting out and giving into them, you learn to allow them. You come to understand what's going on with your body, emotionally, physically, right? And then you allow that urge, you don't fight it off, and you learn to breathe through it and let it go, which is much easier said than done, I know. But if you have not yet learned some of those skills, then that's where we need to focus first. Okay, if you have this urge that's not going away, but really you don't have the skills to deal with it yet, we got to start there. So stop shaming yourself, stop beating yourself up for not having those skills. Were children born knowing how to ride a bike? No, they're not. They have to learn from someone or get on that thing and figure it out. And with figuring it out comes a lot of failure. You fall down, you make mistakes, and you simply don't know what you don't know. So stop expecting yourself to have all the answers all the time. It's okay to get help. And I promise you that if you just think that you should just be able to willpower your way through it and that there's something fundamentally flawed with you because you keep giving in, you're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And I challenge you to look at that and challenge the beliefs that you have about yourself. Okay. You just need skills. Overcoming porn is a skill that can be learned, or a conglomeration of skills when combined together can help you thrive and be free. Now, if you don't have those skills, that's why we have the brotherhood. That's why I have, hands-on help and offers there for you to get that support. If you do have those skills, or if you're actively working on those skills, then here's the thing. Like, I just got off a call with one of my clients here today. He was kind of in panic mode. He all of a sudden was having intense urges and planning on how he was going to sexually act out. Okay. Well, that is in complete opposition of what he was wanting. And we're talking about in a way that would totally sabotage probably his career because of the emotional strain it would cause, definitely his relationship, and absolutely his self-worth. Right. And so what did he do? He reached out, which so freaking proud of him for doing so. He did not go it alone. So there's a huge thing. Just don't go it alone. You need help. But he was just asking me, what do I do? Like, this thing is it's so strong. It's here right now. Like, even as I'm talking to you, what do I do? And this is what I told him. I told him, you need to feel. We're terrified of feeling. We've trained ourselves to believe that emotions are scary, that they're larger than life, that they're bigger than what we can handle, and it's simply not true. You are absolutely capable of facing down the emotions that are trying to emerge. When you're experiencing massive urges, something within you is trying to emerge. There's a part of you that is trying to get its needs met. Well, it doesn't need porn. Okay? That is a pseudo Band-Aid, right? It's just a pseudo way, a shallow way of trying to meet needs, but it's not getting to the root. Our brains are designed to seek out pleasure, avoid pain, and to do those two things as efficiently as possible. That's survival. That means life or death, at least historically. Maybe not so much anymore. But that's why we're trained, or our brains work that way. So there's nothing wrong with your brain for anchoring or attaching itself to pornography to try to solve its problems. Porn is very pleasurable. Now, it's temporary pleasure though, right? It's unearned dopamine. It's fleeting and often leaves you emptier than when you started. And then it, depending on morality and what have you, or what it's stopping you from achieving in your life, then you can really couple it with a whole mountain of shame, and it causes a lot of issues. So here's the thing. Instead of facing those emotions because they're scary and we've convinced ourselves that we can't handle them, or we were children when we started coping with porn, and at that time you truly weren't yet able to handle your emotions. Okay. You got to have compassion for yourself. You were simply trying to survive if that was the case. But now you're an adult, or at least close to it if you're here working with me. And so we have to shift our beliefs. You're no longer a powerless child anymore. You have a functional adult within you that can absolutely cope with and face down the difficult emotions that you're experiencing and this urge that you're going through right now. So you have to take courage and allow yourself to feel. So my client today, well, I told him he needed to feel, and immediately his head went down and all this emotion started coming to the surface. That was everything he's been holding on to. And we were able to discuss, okay, he's got some major things happening in his life, really, really good things. So huge wins, but that also mean a lot more responsibility in his career. Things in his relationship are going insanely well, and that's amazing. And he wants to marry this girl, but man, oh man, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what it's like to be in such an amazing relationship. Am I worthy of it? Like all these different things and beliefs can come up, which bring uncertainty. And then his living situation right now is just not optimal. It's temporary, but it's uncomfortable. So he's got all of these uncomfortable things kind of all coming to a head. Good things, not so good things, right? Just because something's good or you achieve success doesn't mean it's comfortable. That might be calling you up to live at a higher standard. And man, oh man, the psyche has a hard time with that sometimes, especially when it means letting go of porn and the things that it thinks it needs to survive. But here's the reality: is he was bottling up all this emotion, and he was trying to process the urge. And what am I feeling? What's going on internally? Kind of more logically looking at the situations in his life. Like he was able to tell me everything that's going on. So it all made logical sense. But emotionally, those emotions were still stuck. They weren't getting movement. So that urge was just, even though he reached out in our community, even though he messaged me directly, even though he's journaling, even though he's breathing, even though he's going for walks, even though he's doing all these things, that urge is just not letting up. Well, he was doing so many things right, and I commend him for that. And I'm so proud of him for having the courage to reach out and own such a powerful urge and be honest and open about what he was experiencing. And ultimately, that did lead him to success today. I mean, this was today, you guys. That led him to success, that surrender to getting help. So that's a great way for you to confront these urges, right? Get help, surrender, stop trying to just force your way through it. But on the other side of that, the main message I want you to know and understand today is that even though you go through all of those motions, like he told me, he's like, you know what? I've done this so many times where I've reached out for help, but then I still go and act out anyway. Well, he did a great thing in reaching out for help, but he still didn't let himself feel. You have to surrender to the grief. Oftentimes there's so much grief that we're feeling, or shame, or guilt, or regret, or remorse, or fear, right? Insecurity. And instead of allowing ourselves to feel it, we just lock it down. You'll lock it down. Well, what happens when you do that? It just makes urges get more powerful. Because again, your brain is just trying to find a way. It's trying to actually help you. It's just trying to relieve what you're bottling up. And you've looked at porn so many times that that's just the conditioned method of choice. Okay. So now we know, though, we're stepping in as that functional adult and saying that's not going to help me actually. It's going to temporarily help me escape and numb me out. But man, oh man, it's not going to solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem is surrendering to the truth, allowing yourself to feel, holding space for those emotions, showing love and care and nurturance towards yourself. We have a really hard time doing that, especially when you struggle with shame. And then breathing through it all. Guys, this is uncomfortable. Sometimes these emotions come up and they feel really intense and overwhelming. But you breathe through it as you let it come to the surface, and then you learn to let it go. But you can't let it go unless you feel. You cannot let these emotions go unless you feel them and allow them in. Now, I'm going to share a quick story with you, and then we'll basically wrap up this live stream, and then we'll get to some Q&A. The last 2 months have been extremely difficult for me. I've been dealing with some significant health-related issues, and I've shared this openly with my guys, but I think, to be totally honest, I've been kind of having an internal breakthrough of my own. There's some of my own limitations that I've been facing down. It's uncomfortable, and as a result, my own emotions are coming up. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. I was trying to face it. Don't get me wrong. using the tools that I teach my guys. Sometimes we all struggle, yeah. But what I ended up doing is I ended up getting some support. I went to my doctor and tried another anxiety medication. And for a month it worked. It worked great. And I was a very low dose, just enough to kind of take the edge off of it so I could get more movement. And for a month I was doing very well. Well, then it tapered off and my doctor decided to up my dose just a little bit, which is normal when you first start a medication, kind of get it dialed in, right? Well, then I experienced what's called serotonin syndrome, and it almost killed me. So, I mean, you can look it up. I won't go in great detail on serotonin syndrome here from SSRIs, but it was absolutely terrifying. One of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me. Woke me up in the middle of the night and I thought I was going to die. And like massive panic, but then my heart was racing a million miles an hour and I thought my heart was going to stop. I couldn't speak hardly. I woke up my wife, told her to call 911, and it was really, really bad, really scary. And for about 6 days after that, I didn't hardly sleep because I was scared to go to sleep. I had this drug in my system still, and I resisted sleep like nobody's business because of fear. And so I was kind of having a PTSD type reaction to this. And then allergy season, ragweed season kicked in. I was starting to do better, and then all of a sudden I couldn't sleep for like 2.5, 3 weeks because of my allergies were so bad. And it just reinforced this damaged sleep pattern. Okay. Well, then after that, then all of a sudden, for like the last month, I've woken up almost every night experiencing panic attacks, which, I mean, I had a few panic attacks as a kid, maybe a couple throughout my adult life when things were really rough, especially my relationship, but I was not struggling with this stuff before I took that medication. So these panic attacks are happening and waking me up every night, can't sleep for hours. It's just been really rough. Internally and in my mind, I've actually been really positive, not struggling with depression and very hopeful, excited about my future and ready to rock and roll. But then it's been hard because when you don't sleep, you can only get so much done in a day when you're completely fatigued. Well, the reason why I share this with you is just this past Sunday, my wife, she is a certified sex addiction therapist. She's also a brain spotting therapist. And she decided to help me with some brain spotting. It's kind of nice to have a built-in therapist that can help me with this, but we did a brain spotting session, which again, I won't go into details about what brain spotting is right now, but it's a form of acute trauma therapy. And if you have a lot of trauma or PTSD, absolutely highly recommend it. But in doing this with her for probably a solid 20 to 30 minutes, I felt very uncomfortable. I was having all these emotions come up, fear around this situation. But then also I noticed that a lot of the things that were happening to me in real time were starting to kind of entangle with my own past stuff that I've worked a lot on, right, to resolve. Well, now I'm just like emotionally overloaded and I'm like, I can't sleep and I'm feeling all this fear and anxiety every time I lay down in my bed. Like, what is going on? Like in my head, I'm calm, I'm good, like I'm not worried, but I'm having this physical, automatic, involuntary reaction. Well, in this session with her for like 20 to 30 minutes, I'm extremely uncomfortable. And I'm telling her, I feel like I want to get out of here. I don't want to face these emotions or whatever the heck it is that's there. And finally, I was able to fully surrender to it. And all this emotion just came out. That was uncomfortable. Like, here's the thing. It's going to be uncomfortable when you face those emotions. Sometimes it's going to be really intense. Sometimes not as much. But for me in this situation, it was very intense because I had some really scary things happening. Right. And so I was able to let it out though. And I cried. I mean, I ugly cried. It sucked. It wasn't fun. But I know, and I've trained myself now to surrender to that because I know how much better I'm going to feel on the other side. I was able to let all that out, then talk about it with my wife, let it go. And guess what? That night, I slept. Monday night, I slept. Last night was a little bit rougher. I just had a hard time going to sleep, but then once I went to sleep, I slept. Didn't have a panic issue at night. So there's just a sign of the power of being able to release emotion. And if you have these persistent urges and you're doing everything you can, ask yourself, am I really letting out the emotions that are in here? Okay. And if you're not, there's your answer. Now, you may release those emotions and you may still experience urges. Okay. Urges can happen as a result of, these hard things coming up, but they can also just happen purely because you've conditioned your brain to get the dopamine regularly on a regular basis. Yeah. So it could just be your conditioning speaking, but usually it's because you're trying to cope with something. So take this for what it's worth. If you need help with the actual skills, release the emotion all you want, but if you don't learn the skills, you're just going to continue to struggle. So you need those skills. You cannot replace the skills with anything else because, again, overcoming porn is a skill that can be learned. And that's just, you got to surrender to someone that can help you with that. Cool. If you're watching this on YouTube, if this is helpful for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button, join the brotherhood. Click the link below, join our community and get the support that you need. Otherwise, if you're here with us live, we got Agastya and Tage. Super glad you're here. Let's open it up for some Q&A.